Thank you for the speakers for such an inspiring and interesting opening session. I would like to, for the next session entitled EurofamNet, Lessons and Implications for Policy and Practice, I have the pleasure to introduce Lucia Jimenez. She is Associate Professor in Educational Psychology at the University of Seville, and John Canavan, who is Professor at the University of Galway, and they will intervene as Chair and Vice Chair of the action on behalf of EurofamNet. So, Lucia and John, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. As Chair and Vice Chair of the action, we want to start by saying welcome to this European Forum on Family Support. Welcome to Madrid. And we want also to start saying thank you for our co-hosters, the Ministry of Social Affairs and Agenda 2030, and the Spanish Federation of Municipalities of Provinces, for co-hosting this event with us, for supporting the organization in an organizational level, but also in an economic level, and for opening your house, opening Madrid, a warm Madrid, we could say, these days, and inviting to your house, and also to embracing family support as a priority for this European Agenda 2030. We want also to say thank you to the European Cooperation and Science Technology Association for giving the opportunity to develop this network, to build up this network, and to provide the support for a very strong research program for the last 4 years, and for sure for the University of Seville for leading this project in collaboration with the Research Foundation of the University of Seville. It's also a moment to say thank you to the University of Galway for the support to this event, and Red Cross Spain that is also supporting us. Tomorrow we'll be hosting an internal event. So for us, as has been said already in the opening session, it's really very significant, the coincidence of this event with the Spanish presidency of the European Council. And we find this as a signal of what has still to come. So today we will be reflecting about what's the European agenda for family support, and we hope that this is just a step in a large way that we hope that we will be able to make some contributions. Today is a day of celebration, it's a day of sharing, a day of reflection of what we have been doing for the last years, and also it's a day for planning next steps. So even this is a final event, we are not finishing. We want to stay as EurofamNet, and we will try also to reflect about that today. As Chair and Vice Chair of the Action, we wanted to share with you what are for us the EurofamNet implications for policy and practice. And for that purpose, we wanted to start with the perspective of families. And what we will do now is watching a video that has been nicely coordinated by our colleagues, Carlos García Medina, Jesus Maya, and Rocío Garrido. And you will have the opportunity to learn more about it in the poster session, because you will find a poster with more details about that. But I want to tell you now that what you will see in this video is the stories for several families that have been interviewed about what has been their experience with family support delivery. I want to say thank you also to our policy and practice coordinator leader that has been supporting to get the view of families from Spain, UK, and Croatia. We have been using an art-based methodology that gave us the opportunity to interact with families, to translate what we are doing to families, and also to be able to engage with them. So now I'm giving the floor to the technical team that I hope that they can play the video. Thank you.
These are the Horvaths, Maria and Marcos family. They have 4 children, Luca, Stefan, Lorena, and Mia. They live in very poor housing conditions without access to the municipal water supply, without a toilet, isolated by traffic because they live in a Roma settlement, and without access to the internet or any other facilities. Marco works in the metal industry and receives child benefits. Maria is a housewife, while she's trying to get a job as a cleaner in a department store. However, she was rejected when they found out that she was Roma. With the money the husband earns, it is very difficult to cover basic food and hygienic living expenses. They cannot count on the help of relatives and neighbors who are also in a very difficult financial situation. This is the Khaled family. Ahmed and Amira are Syrian and they came to Northern Ireland 5 years ago on a government scheme to resettle refugees and escape the war in their country. This was organized by the United Nations. They left Syria with no money or food and some of their family were killed in the war. They experienced many traumatic events in their country which are still very painful for them to talk about and have affected their mental health. They now live in a small market town with their 3 children, Hassan, Fatima and Aisha. The children have not attended the school regularly for years due to their situation, finding it difficult to learn English and to integrate into the local community. This is the Gutierrez family, a Spanish family made up of Andres and Laura and their 2 twin children, Maria and Juan, aged 11. They live in a deprived area of Seville. The parents have been unemployed for a long time, which is very frustrating for them. Moreover, Maria has developmental disabilities, so she needs extra support, which is provided especially by her grandparents. Despite living far away, these families have many things in common. First, they are grateful for public services. The Khaleds highlight the help they have received from an NGO, which has helped them to obtain state benefits, open a bank account, secure accommodation, and access education and health services. The Gutierrez emphasize the excellent work developed by the local social services as well as their parent school, where they have developed a good network and find excellent professionals. However, the Horbats say they feel discriminated against by public service workers because they are Roma. Secondly, all the families felt very isolated when the COVID-19 pandemic came, which had a very dramatic impact on their economy and living conditions, so they would need psychological support, which is very difficult for them to access. Thirdly, the 3 of them would need more economic support to meet their basic needs due to the increase in the cost of living to ensure that no one is left behind. Finally, they want to improve their living conditions, especially for their children. To achieve this, the Khaleds suggest improving translation and cultural competencies within services and other sources to strengthen their families' communication skills. The Gutierrez would like to find integrated programs to support families with children with disabilities, as well as more activities in their communities related to enjoy free time with their children. Horbats would like to see more inclusion in schools and in society in general with ethnically diverse populations in order to achieve equality. Finally, these families, like all families, just want to be happy.
So I'm sure that as family support experts, we could just start talking about this video and spend the rest of the day about what are the implications that we can learn from there, from these exemplifying stories that are real stories, from families from Europe that are telling us what we are doing well, and we can identify several good practices there, but also that there is room for improvement. And there, as family support experts and as family support researchers, we have this claim to be able to provide quality family support for all children and families. So, and it's in this space where we establish our objective as EurofamNet, and I'm copying our policy and practice group leader words, and how can we make a real difference in children and families' lives. And we are embracing this objective by developing what we hope is rigorous, bottom-up and interdisciplinary research in order to develop the family support field. And what we do is trying to put together, to share what we are doing, to reflect on that, and to move forward from that shared learning, and for sure to identify what are the next steps, what are the next challenges in family support research, and try to address those challenges. And for that, there is no other possibility that made an advocacy role, and that's also in the heart of EurofamNet, to have an evidence-informed policy and practice. In order to reach this objective, you know this graphic well, those that are EurofamNet members, because this is the commitment that we have from our foundation, that is try to do our research in the intersection with policy and practice. We know that when we have policy and practice with no research, we can damage children and families. That when we have only policy and research, we are not having a real impact in families. And if it's only practice and research, we can have some impact, but not a systemic change. So it's in that intersection between research, policy, and practice when we can get the maximum impact, when we have that informed practice that is embedded in clear policy frameworks. And as you can see on the slide, the rights of children and families as right owners are on the basis. And why talking about a European dimension of family support? What's the reason to having a European family support network? So from the conventions of the rights of the children, it was really well established. First, that Europe had a commitment with children's rights, but also that the family is the right, is the proper, is the better, the best vehicle to drive those rights, to make possible that children and young people develop and have well-being. And because of that, there has been established national responsibility to support parents and caregivers in order to make real that those rights are achieved. And local authorities and local services have been identified as the best way to drive to deliver family support. There are also some European regulations, some European frameworks that for sure are committed with children's rights, and even we are talking about an ITIS regulation. This has been really recently reinforced by the European Child Guarantee Strategy, and there are other frameworks in social service, positive parenting, as have been said, that they are establishing sometimes more or less explicitly that family is a proper vehicle to drive and to get those children's rights. But the gap is in having an integrated framework for family support policy at the European level, and also to having a real integration of the European, the national, and the local level that make possible that all those policies reach the practice level. So is in this gap, is in this space where EurofamNet find that can make a contribution in alignment with these frameworks and with the clear commitment to have evidence-informed policy and practice, with the recognition that it's only from research, from evidence-informed position, that when it's integrated in policy and practice, we can make a difference. So as have been saying already in the opening session, we are a large network of researchers in collaboration with key stakeholders, practitioners, policymakers, children and families representatives, and so on, from 35 countries currently. And well, we are happy to have as partners what we consider are the 13 key European associations that are working on the field. And this helps us to have what we have called a double layer structure. So meaning that we are operating at the national level because we want to provide evidence from this bottom-up process, so starting from the ground, but at the same level, we want to develop European guidelines that can move forward on family support agenda. So we are using also what we call a dialogical style because we want to be very inclusive in terms of discipline and sectors and actors, but particularly to give the voice to the right people as children and families are.
So thanks, Lucia. So just to talk a little bit about where we're coming from in terms of philosophy, I suppose it's really important for us to start at the bottom of the diagram there, and you look at and you'll see rights, and really we're talking about children's rights driving the agenda. But obviously we are researchers, so we have a scientific intent, a scientific integrity, a scientific expectation. And we want to make a difference in practice. We want to make a difference in what people do in their day-to-day work with children, young people, families and communities. So for us, our philosophical stance is a commitment to evidence-based practice founded with that intersection. And again, that's really, really important to say. It's easy to say, but obviously it's far more difficult to achieve. So I suppose when we started the work, we identified that there were probably, three major gaps in the field. And the first of these really was in the area of a conceptual basis for family support. Certainly there was a set of publications out there, there's some nice policy documents, but a real clarity around what family support should be at European level wasn't in place. So if you want, that was our key gap that we identified that we wanted to pursue. And this is one of three, and we will hear a lot more about these as we go on. The second is the area of, I suppose, family support delivery, and really thinking about quality family support and evidence-based programs and achieving a consistency across Europe, achieving a way of working that integrates well with existing service systems, but also frames this in terms of children's rights again and parents' rights, and really thinking about this as a right. So again, our work in the network has focused significantly on quality standards and related areas of evaluation and so on. And finally, our third area of work has been focused on workforce skills development. And again, I suppose from a child, a young person, parent's point of view, really what matters is who's this person that's in front of them, working with them, and have they the skills to work effectively to support them. And again, the work that's been driven by Working Group 3 is coming to a fruition, a culmination, or Working Group 4, should I say, culmination at the moment, and you'll hear a lot about that this afternoon. But again, I suppose, thinking about this in terms of the workforce skills, one of the things that even this morning I was speaking to somebody about is we need to think about workforce skills for more than just the narrow disciplines, let's say, of child protection, social work, and broaden that out into disability, into mental health, and into many other areas. But just to look and take a moment to consider these three areas, these three, if you want, areas in which there were gaps, in which we needed to fill up the bucket, if you want, to get the information, to get the ideas. And that's really what we've been working on for the last 4 years. And that's what you'll hear a lot about in the sessions to come. I suppose it's safe to say that we regard where we're at the moment as only the beginning, as Lucia has said. It's also safe to say that we are involved in a complex field. If we talk about family, immediately we are entering into an area of great contention and debate, difference and so on. And again, if we're talking about evidence, if we're talking about rights, these are not simple or straightforward issues. What we think we have done so far in this initial stage of the work is to lay some foundations, but we have a long, long way to go. So really we are on a journey, it's a spiral, it's an evidence growth. So maybe just to take that metaphor with you as you go through the day and begin to think about, okay, this is the start of the journey, we've got some foundations, now where are we going to go from here? As we say, family support isn't a single project, it's a larger scale program of work, a larger scale commitment at the research level, at the policy level, and at the practice level. So just to kind of give you a sense in which the work that we are doing really is grounded in the currency of European policy. We're going to hear now in a video from Marie-Cécile Rouillon, who is the Rights of the Child Coordinator at the Directorate General for Justice and Consumers at the European Commission. And again, this is based on an interview that my esteemed colleague Lucia did with her. So we'll go into the video now.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rouillon, for joining us. I know you have a very busy agenda, so thank you for making this space to join us today. It's a pleasure to having you and having the opportunity, even in a virtual manner, to having your view and your reflection about what we are trying to promote regarding family support in Europe.
Thank you very much, Lucia. And also for organizing this event. I would have loved to be with you in Madrid, but I'm a bit stuck back in Brussels due to other commitments today. And I would really welcome this European Forum on Family Support and welcome EurofamNet, the Ministry of Social Affairs and the Social Federation of Municipalities and Provinces, because indeed it's a very important topic. We need the family, we need to support them. They are also essential for children to have their rights upheld.
Thank you very much. And as Rights of the Child Coordinator of the Directorate General Justice and Consumers from the European Commission, we wanted to have your view about what do you think, what is the role of family support in the child guarantee and in order to promote the rights of children in Europe?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And indeed, when we talk about children's rights, it's also very important to consider that children are also in a broader context of a community, a family, and all what is really their living condition around. And I would also refer to the legal framework that is the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union and the link to the right of the child. Also the charter that stipulates that the family should enjoy legal, economic and social protection. And more broadly, because that's also a matter that is important globally, the UN Convention on the Right of the Child. That said, the critical point is how we make rights and law a reality. And for this, we have put in place very strong instruments at EU level with the European Child Guarantee. That is really a clear reflection on how, with very clear and concrete plans, the member states could focus on fighting poverty, fighting the cycle of poverty that is also passing away this difficult way of living from a family to the child and to the next generation. So on this, we see that indeed, and that's why it's very important to have also data that families with more than 3 children, family with one woman, are also at increased risk of poverty and to be in more precarious family situation. So we see also that some concrete actions like early childhood education and care, and notably what we had at the revision of the Barcelona target, increasing the participation of early childhood education and care is also a support for the family and for the family to live in a better situation and for the child to fulfill his or her rights. So again, this background, with the European Child Guarantee, there are really like concrete objectives of free and effective access for children in need to early childhood education and care, education and school-based activities, 1 healthy meal a day, a school day, healthcare, and also effective access for children in need to healthy nutrition and adequate housing. And just listing all of those topics, you see how important the family is in that context. It's basically also the environment that has to be supported. Not forgetting about the issue of independent living for children that are in specific needs, children with vulnerabilities, where having the children living in that family and not an institution also requires a very strong support to the families in question. So that's also where the Commission is also thinking of specific measures on that. Then, if I come to the EU strategy on the right of the child, that is basically a roadmap for action that was adopted in 2021. I would quickly go through, but really the key message is that it's also very important that the families and community need to be provided the necessary support so that they can ensure children's well-being and development. It comes once about child participation, that the children also in their family have their right to speak out and have their rights to express their views in matters that concern them. It's also in socio-economic inclusion, so it's certainly coming back to the child guarantee, that is a key measure there. but it's also on mental health. Lately, in June, the European Commission put forward a comprehensive approach on mental health that really recognized the importance of the family, the community, economy, society, the environment, and the security. And children are really a priority target group in that strategy. And we know how the families and children have been affected during the COVID, during all the crises in first instance. I would also mention something specific, for instance, the situation of the families that could be, the postnatal depression. That's also, for instance, a very concrete point that is also mentioned in that strategy with a project that is called Happy Moms. So it's really important to see the child with interaction with the family. On the third dimension of the strategy, that is child protection, next year we will present an initiative on the integrated child protection systems. And I know that in Spain, there have been like very promising step forward with notably an organic law on such an integrated protection. And this is very important that we see what is existing in the different member states, and we will recommend how the EU can support them in strengthening the systems. And certainly, special attention have to be given to prevention measures and family support. Because when we speak about protection of children, it's about the whole environment. It's school, it's extrascholar activities, it's how we can identify the risk of children being victim of violence. Prevention is essential. And then what we do and what is done by the services when a child is victim. Then the fourth pillar is on child-friendly justice. And here the Commission proposed last year regulation to support the mutual recognition of parenthood between member states. What it is, very simply, that a child that has two parents in one country can move to another country and still have the same parents recognized. It's on something that is obvious for the best interest of the child, but that has also to be discussed on how that becomes a reality. And here again, is the best interest of the child within his or her family. Last year as well, there were like new rules, Brussels 2B regulation that enter into force on cross-border custody cases when there are like parental responsibility issues, that the procedure is simplified. So you see that there are very concrete steps. I would also mention the digital dimension, because you know how parents could be also like in such not really understanding what is going on, and we are all facing that. We don't get that the life of our children have changed, and we need also support. So that's why within the Better Internet for Kids strategy, there are safe internet centers that could also give resources for children, for families, for teachers, and helplines, because we know that children are also victims of cyberbullying, grooming, disturbing contents, and certainly the parents also need support, because they are the first one that could see that. And then the international, that's the last pillar of the strategy, international dimension of the strategy is in children in migration. And here, obviously, it's also very important to always keep in mind the best interest of the child, notably when spot family reunification. So all of this, it's a kind of broad presentation of the key priority that the Commission gives on the protection of children and the fact of upholding children's rights, and certainly families have a key role to play for that and need adequate support.
Thank you very much, Ms. Guillon, for this very specific, very detailed and very well argumented case for the role of family support in child guarantee. I would like to emphasize how, as you are saying, from a basis that we all share, that the role that family has, that it has been so largely established in literature and in empirical research, and the alignment also with the European Union values and the key aspects at that level, how we have this framework and this legal framework that we find that it's so important. And I would like, if I may, emphasize a couple of ideas that I think that interact very well with the focus that we are having in our network. And one of it is, as you have perfectly explained, is the complexity of this strategy, and also for us as family supporters, let's say, how we have to consider different sectors, different areas, and a mainstream policy for that. In terms of methodology, I would like also to emphasize, because for us it's very important, the child participation piece, for example, that is something that we have been always pushing, and I want to reinforce that idea, because it's something we cannot forget, that this has to come with that view of considering the voices of parents for sure, but children and young people that is so important. The preventive approach and working with the vulnerables, that it's fundamental, and those that are in at-risk situations, but for sure promoting the prevention and starting, let's say, as soon as possible. And I would like to finish this comment emphasizing as you say, how we become this real and how do we implement this. And that's also a challenge for us and is part of our next step. We have been at European level trying to produce and joint evidence regarding how support better families to make a real difference in children and families' life. And our next step is, well, how can we contribute to implement children's rights, to make real that we move forward. And my next question for you would be, well, if you can share, well, how do you see, or if you think, or how do you think we could contribute to this end? How can we support countries from our role, from this network, and how we operate and who we are? How could we support to move forward in this objective that is shared for all of us? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, complex matters, and we have to be also pragmatic in the way we advance. And that's really all what we are doing with those strategies to make them operational. I would say on child participation, we have just launched the new platform, European EU platform on children's rights, on child participation. We have a website that is EU for Children. And it's also open for registration. So if in your network you have child participation, that will be very important to go to this network. I could also pass on the link. So it's EU for Children. And that's basically, they could also then speak out. And we had children from all across Europe speaking. So certainly they have also their word to say on how they conceive the family and what support should be given there. Then another very pragmatic approach, an important one, is the evidence-based dimension. And we see that when we are developing policies, we need that. And a reflection is that children's rights are now. And indeed, they have to be respected now. And that's also an investment in the fight against poverty, an investment again on the fight against violence, for all the dimension it has. So on all of this, we need data, we need figures, we need to say how much it's cost for the society, and certainly also who could help. So who could help, and if the investment in family support is done, what also it could mean in terms of return on investment. And it's a bit strange sometimes to speak like this, but it's also something that is very powerful. Because we see that once we don't invest at this level of children, of their family, it bears a very much higher cost on the whole society. I would say that's a very interesting approach, and also certainly the reality in the different countries. Because we have also to deal with different cultures, with different stories, with different competence, because the EU has not the full competence there, far from that. It's more in cross-border the situation that the EU does. So it's also very important to understand what is done. I would also flag that, notably on child protection, the Fundamental Rights Agency is making a mapping on child protection systems in the EU in the different countries. And certainly there is also something on families and on foster care family, on those children that's so deprived of parental responsibility. So I would also encourage you maybe to look at what the Fundamental Rights Agency is also doing and have synergies. And if you could also add on some topics, that would be certainly very useful for us. These are just like really brainstorming, but I understand that you have a full day of brainstorming and actions. So I really wish you a very, very fruitful discussion, and I hope that it could be somehow useful and inspirational. Thank you very much for this invitation, unfortunately online. Next time I would love to visit you in Madrid.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
and as you say, I hope we have the opportunity to have another chance to meet and to discuss furtherly. Thank you.
With pleasure. And I wish you great discussion. I will be very happy to know about the outcome. So have a great day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So before we close the morning session, just to make a brief note regarding, I suppose, Ms. Rion's presentation and conversation with Lucia, we can see for us who've been working in the trenches and working very hard over 4 years, that significant amount of what we are doing really, really does resonate at European policy level. And we've got some hints and suggestions as well for the future. So I think it behoves us to follow those. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucia and John. I would like to invite you all to the coffee break, which is in the same room where you registered. There you will also find a series of posters that were created by members of EurofamNet to tell the stories of our work over the past 4 years. And in that regard, I would like to mention Sofia Baena, our colleague from EurofamNet, who is also the leader of the Young Researchers Group and who has kindly coordinated all this work on the poster session. So thank you for that. I have also been asked to remind you that if you didn't get the chance to either get your identification or get your certificates, or if you have any questions, you can come by the registration desk as well. We will be back for our next session at 11:30. So thank you.